What is up, everybody? Zach from Redwood Chronicles. The Rally Innovations light bar finally came in, which means that's the final piece to the puzzle. Been waiting for about a month to get all this stuff put on the car. So this will either be one big video or a couple different small videos. I haven't decided yet, but just to walk you through it, we have, like I was saying, that light bar itself, and then two Baja Design LP6s are going to go on that, wired through a Switch Pro, along with the Hella horns going to the Switch Pro as well. So I'm just gonna hold this on there, mark it with a screwdriver, and call it good. Just drill those holes that are marked. So I use a 9/64 bit. It's just big enough. You'll have to thread the screws on there, but I figured since it's going through plastic, might as well make them thread. Make it a little bit of a tighter fit. Get these nuts on here and tight, and that'll be that. Not bad. So Switch Pro recommends that you mount this like this instead of like this. But because of the way this engine bay is set up, there's no good spot for it. This is really the best spot I could come up with. The WRX isn't going to be taking on any water, so I'm not too concerned about water getting in there and messing up the terminals. So yeah, that's where it's gonna go. So the plan is to mount this just like that. That way it's all in the same spot. It'll be easy to hit the buttons. The first step to do that's gonna be to pry this out. Now, as you can see, I just totally messed up my plastics. Oh well. This, you can see these U's right here connects to this thing. Now, these are screwed in from the bottom, so if you want to unscrew this to do this the right way, you're going to have to like take this whole center console apart so you can access this Phillips screw that's on the bottom side of this. I didn't do that. I'm just going to pull these out and call it a day. And then this will still clip in there just fine and stay in. Not the tightest thing anymore, but it'll be all right. So first thing I'm gonna do is use this hole bit, if that's what you call it. This is a 7/8. It's just what I had laying around. You could probably get one that's closer to fit that through. You could do an even smaller hole and push the pins through, but it's gonna be covered up. So I'm just gonna run this through the top. Big enough to get that guy through. Then we'll just mount that to that and you won't even see the hole. Alright, so the next step's gonna be marking where we need to drill the holes on this guy. So I'm gonna use paint pen and just put some dabs on there, and then I'm gonna put this back in the car, and then I'll mark it with where I want this to go. Alright, so we got those two marks. Just gonna use a 1/8 drill bit. So on your Switch Pro instructions, there's this template. They tell you to cut it out, but on the back there's instructions. So I just made a photocopy really quick, cut it out nice and small, ran a couple pieces of the all thread through the back, and then now we're just gonna mark these two top holes. And I know the 1/8 is a little small for the size screw we're gonna be using, but I find anytime I put something in plastic, I just make it a little bit smaller and actually kind of thread it onto the plastic. So the all thread that comes with the Switch Pro is too short, so I went to the hardware store, got a few screws. The screws I'm using are 6x32. That's the same pitch as the all thread. And then it's a 1-inch screw, and I'm gonna go ahead and use 2 washers just to get a snug fit. Put this through here, and then this will screw right into the Switch Pro. All right, so now we got this all installed, good to go. Take a look at what it looks like in the car. Pretty good install. Clean that white stuff off later, but looks pretty clean to me. Well, the next step is a part I'm really not excited for. It's probably going to be the most difficult part of this whole deal, but that's getting wires through the firewall. So, I don't know if you can see right here behind the intercooler is the factory firewall boot that runs all the factory wires through. So the goal is to go through there. So we're going to start by taking the intercooler off. Consists of pulling off this little clip right here. You just pry that guy up. That'll pop off and allow this to separate. It'd be easier if you take these two bolts right here, but you don't have to. And then it's this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, and they're all 12 millimeters. So let's go ahead and get that done. So now you can see a whole lot better that grommet thing through the firewalls right here. So that's what we're going to try and go through. If you don't want to deal with all this, the other option is you can peel this off and come through the fender. And then what I did on the cross check was I just cut a little slit in this grommet. You'll have to pull the door off. You can cut a little slit in this and then it will just feed through over to this side. Another option to run stuff through, but I'm going for as factory as possible, so we're gonna run it, or at least try and run it through that grommet. See how it goes. So on the driver's side, got the gas pedal right here, and then that's where those wires are gonna come through, and you can see that slit I made, and that's what we're gonna try and fish all these wires through. So let's see how this goes. So the next step's gonna be taking off this connector. This is the wire that goes from the Switch Pro controller to the Switch Pro switch. Basically, you can see, hopefully, that right here, there's a little tab. So all you're gonna do is stick your little screwdriver. It might be a better tool for this. I'm using a little screwdriver just on the side to push that tab down, and then you just kind of wiggle it out and work them out. All right, so what I got now, just took some electrical tape and put all the wires together in one little thing. I think this is gonna be stiff enough to force through there and be able to grab on the other side. There's a couple wires that have to go through, or that I'm putting through intentionally. One obviously being the switch controller wire. Then I have a wire for the footwell illumination I'm gonna do there and wire through the Switch Pro. And then there's also an ignition wire that I'm gonna run to and add a fuse I already have in the cab fuse panel for a Valentine one. So I'm just gonna tap into that. These three other wires are strictly just because I never wanna do this again. So I'm gonna run 3 wires through, so they're already through, and then they'll just be kind of capped off and saved for a later date if I ever use them. I can't think of anything I'd use them for, but I know I never want to do this again, so I'm just gonna wire them now. Now for the moment of truth, see if we can actually get this through there. So it took about 30-45 minutes, but I finally got that stuff shoved through. As you can see here, all the wires are going through that factory grommet coming out the other side, and then on this side here they are. That's about how long I taped up, probably about 8 inches, 8 to 10 inches. And then I found that as you're pushing it through on the engine bay side, once it kind of gets stuck, if you come to the cab side and kind of reach your arm up there and grab the whole grommet as it comes through and kind of wiggle it, it will allow, then you can go back to the other side and push the wires through a little bit more. It's a total pain, guys, I'm not gonna kid you. The door might be easier, but I'm definitely happy I did it this way. All right, so for now we just brought the controller wire up through and then out this hole, put this guy back on. To do this, guys, we're gonna start out by just giving those things we pried in a little pry out so they'll catch again. So you have the little key that tells you where these guys are gonna go. This is gonna be your orientation thing. This little notch right here is gonna be on the top. And you go white, black, and then red goes under white and green on goes under black. And that'll plug into here. Alright, so that part's done. Wired through the firewall and in it goes. Alright, so my next step's gonna be getting all the footwell illumination stuff done. I'm gonna do a LED strip on both passenger and driver's side, front and rear. Not gonna do too much about that, just put them where you want them and wire the red to the red and the red and the black to the black. But I'll show you that once it's done. So for those, the rear LED strips, you can see I just kind of zip tied them to the seat under here, wired them together, and then the wires go forward. All right, guys, so you can kind of see the up here under the driver's feet. Got that LED strip. I just zip tie it. I have secured it to here, just to back you up a little bit, right under here. I have 3M taped it to there before, but the 3M tape eventually always falls off, so I'm not going to do that this time around. Wiring, blue's coming from the back, and then the two other positives are coming from the lights that are in the front, and then the ground and the blue will go to the Switch Pro, black will come to the ground. I ground all my interior wires right here. Just pull that bolt out, and that's a good place to ground everything. So that's the footwell illumination all done. So like I was saying earlier, I brought these 3 extra wires through. They're not going to be tied to anything, so I'm just going to zip tie them and tuck them up there, which is the same place I wired the other side's footwell illumination through. It just goes right through under there. So I'm just going to shove these guys up here, keep them out of the way. And the last thing we got to do in the cab is just this white wire is going to be the trigger wire for the ignition. So this will get wired to the light blue of the Switch Pro. Couldn't find light blue wire to keep it the same, but basically this add fuse here in that position is already, this is what my Valentine one is hooked up to. So we're just going to cut this and wire all this, because that's an ignition thing and it's just a trigger wire, so that'll work great. All right, so the fuse we're going to use, just a better look at it, is that blank, that empty one right there between the 7.5 and the 15, and again that's just to be a trigger for the ignition. So basically this will tell the Switch Pro when the ignition of the car is turned on. The last thing we got to do inside the cab of the car is just clean up all the wiring, pull stuff tight back through the other direction, and then we'll move on to the outside. Alright guys, so when I wire stuff like this, I try to get all the wires to one spot and then wind up wiring it all together. So for now, we got the wires coming out of that grommet and then down, kind of run down here and then come back up. And then they're just hanging out on the side of the car. I'm gonna get the intercooler put back on now that all that's wired the way I like it, and we'll keep going from there. So you saw it pretty much just slides on there, and you're just reversing the same thing you did. So tighten this, these two, that guy, and then this clip. And just come back and sit down like that. And that's all it takes. So get those tightened down and we're done. Alright guys, so next we're going to pull the bumper off. If you're just doing the Rally Innovations light bar, you don't need to do this, but we're doing the Hella horns as well, and it will just make it easier to route the cables for the LP6s. Really nice. So first thing we're going to do is pull off here all these tabs all the way across, these guys across here, this bolt. So to get the bumper off, it's basically just a bunch of plastic clips here, 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 basically anywhere you see a plastic clip, you're gonna pull it off here, here, just all the way across. All right, so once you have all those clips off, I always find it easiest to take the bumper off from the sides. So if you wanted to take it fully off, you just unplug your fog light down here. I don't need to do that because I think I just need to access right here. Okay guys, so to install the hella-horn bracket from Perrin, we're gonna do this clip, this bolt, this clip, and this is a 12 mil. So this is gonna go in like that. Perrin gives you an Allen bolt with a nut, and then you'll use the same nut that came off that bolt in there. So what you should have now, we'll go ahead and put the horns on while that plastic thing's still off. All right, that's what those look like installed, and I'm gonna make the wiring harness. All right, so here's the wiring harness I made. Just 2 wires going into a butt splice coming out. I use brown for the positive because brown's the color that's coming off the Switch Pro that's going to run the horns, and then just the little females to get into the horns themselves. So let's get these put on. Alright, so the horns are on, wires are routed. Polarity does not matter on the hella horns, so I did keep it consistent left and left and right though, as far as how it lined up, and then I just ran the wire up along through here and to here for now. Next we're going to do the Baja LP6 wiring harness, or at least a part of the wiring harness that I'm going to use. Alright, so the horns are on. We got those 2 plastic clips back on for this flappy thing, and we have the Baja Designs wiring harness coming loosely down. I'm going to wait to tighten it down until the end, so I can make sure it's tight all the way to the light bar and I have enough slack and everything. So I haven't been able to find a fuse to use for the high beams. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna tap one of the wires actually going in. So if you look at your wiring harness as it comes in, the second wire from the left, that orange one, that is a trigger, and it has power when the brights are on and no power when the brights are off. So that's the wire we're gonna tap into. So for the Switch Pro, I've always left the white wire off, but I found out yesterday as I was programming the Switch Pro itself that white wire is what allows you to dim stuff. So it needs to be hooked to the light, and again, ran into the same issue with fuses. I tried the tail light fuse, and it has constant power, so you can't do an add a fuse into the tail light in the fuse box. So what I did is just adding another wire tap, and it's that red and gray wire, or the top left wire if you're looking at the back of the harness. So this red tap is for the brights, and this blue tap is for the headlights. Alright guys, so I just finished getting all the wiring tied up, looking good behind the headlight, got the headlight back in, got the Switch Pro hooked up, confirmed it all works. It does. So it's time to get the bumper back on and install the Rally Innovations bar. So what I do when I put the bumper back on is I do the opposite of what I did, take it off and start in the middle instead of the outsides. Just kind of get this guy loosely on here for now. The hardest part is going to be getting all this stuff underneath to line up properly. Make sure your flaps down here in the front are underneath. Once you have it loosely lined up, go ahead and come around the side here. Alright, so some of these are still off, but if you're going to do this from scratch, should be this guy, this guy, that guy down here, and then you got this bolt, that bolt, clip, 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 clip. You gotta remove these clips up here, and then these clips in here, and then all that on both sides, and then this whole plastic piece should drop down, and that's where you'll install the brackets. And these bolts are 12. So the ones we're going to remove on the side that aren't on the bottom are here, here, and this guy up here. So the first thing we're going to do is remove this bolt. And you're going to take this guy. So just to back up a little bit, I had to wind up taking this off to be able to get this to line up. So got it lined up now. This is a 13, so we'll start screwing that. Then we're gonna take this bolt back out now. So that's what you have left. Brackets there. That's the only thing holding it. We took this screw back out. Come and do the other side. Alright guys, so same thing we did on the other side. Stick this bolt you took from when you took off the plastic. Snug it up. Take that M8 bolt that was in the packing tape. Next thing we're going to do is cut out these squares on each side that I already drew. You make these by just setting your ruler up. Then you want to sight it up in the middle of that hole. Draw a line to the top of that lip there. And then they say 1.87 inches across here. So personally I just did 2. Won't hurt it to be a little bit bigger. Give it a little bit more clearance. And same thing on this side. Line up the center of that hole. Draw a line up to the lip. Across 1.7 or 1.87 or 2 inches, and we'll cut it. I'm just going to use some big old 10 snips. Alright, and what you're left with is those 2 holes for the brackets to fit in. We're going to flip this over. We're going to cut off this lip right here. 3 1/4 inches. So just go 3 1/2. Same thing on the other side. 3 1/2. Alright, now you're left with nothing of that. Alright, next step will be getting the splash guard back on. I'm going to start with the 2 bolts. Same 3 bolts, or 3 clips rather. Same on this side. 1, 2, 3 up top. And we'll come back and do everything along the bottom. And then these ones that are back here as well on both sides. Next step is to drill a 1/2 inch hole where you would mount the license plate. Feel kind of bad. Wish I could give this bumper to somebody that wants a non-drilled bumper, but here goes nothing. Next up, Insert these guys into here. And we'll put this bracket on using the bolts that came out of the rubber things. $10 mil. Then you'll know it just gets snug. Just don't strip it out. Pull this stack apart here. Pull out the washer. It's gonna sit on top of there. And then this is gonna come just like that. Nut washer. So you got bolt, washer, light bar, that nylon spacer. Then you'll do washer, lock washer, and nut. You got that secured to the bracket. So the next part is to take a little stack, so you got the bolt on the bottom and then washer, lock washer, nut. Alright, so I'm leaving this somewhat loose now because I'm not totally sure how the LP6s are gonna fit on here. So once I got these tight, I kind of realized that it looks better with this all the way back, and there's still plenty of gap for these not to burn the plastics. They're not touching. So I pushed this all the way back. Gonna re-torque those down. So regardless of what lights you have, you're gonna wanna do this bolt through the bracket first, and then just get these started. I'm gonna plug each light in, stick the bolt through the hole, washer nut. You're gonna angle these so they're straight, and these are 14s as well to tighten this bracket down. So when you guys start torquing your lights down, you will bend this bar and collapse it, so be careful. Alright, that's all you have it. They're on there. I'm gonna get the car off the ramps and line this up on the ground when it's flat.